branding needs to solve a business problem.
And businesses are entities that have to connect with other people at the end of the day.
One of the things that caught me about marketing is how you can use propaganda to literally shape people's minds. That's why every time that I have a new rebranding project, I do a little bit of back engineering.
How are you differentiating yourself?
Ooh, that's interesting, man.
Every story needs to solve a problem.
You have no idea how many people really don't know who are they selling to.
Act like you're a consumer brand.
You can be the most professional person around.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you don't have emotions or that you're not someone fun to be around with. But when it comes to B2B specifically, people have this wrong idea that you need to be always super professional. People who take decisions are humans.
Brands that are the most memorable play on human emotions and behavior. Bezos, his whole philosophy is we want to act as if we're still a startup. Even if we're a huge brand with thousands of employees, we want to still be agile and communicate and act fast like a startup. What is branding? How do you define brand?
See, how can I reframe this in a way that makes sense? So,
all right, Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling?
Dude, it's a little bit off of my element, but it's exciting. It's good to have the opportunity to be in a podcast, to be honest. Would you believe that it's my second podcast in life?
Your second podcast?
Yeah, dude. In another life, I did a little side gig having my own podcast, but this is definitely a little bit more produced.
Is this the first time in the hot seat in the studio?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. I'm super happy.
Happy to have you here, man. Well, for our listeners, for anybody who doesn't know who Christian is, do you mind giving our audience a brief little introduction on who is Christian?
Well, I'm a brand manager. That's kind of the title that I currently have. But, I just like to think of myself as some sort of communicator. One of the main reasons what I got to, marketing and advertising was just to be able to tell the stories of the brands that I work with in an appealing way, connecting, companies with real people and real emotions. And, apparently the way how I'm doing that right now is as a brand manager, but we'll see where life takes me tomorrow.
Well, you're a local branding expert here at Midnight. Could you give us a little bit of background, early on, what were some of the key influences that got you really inspired to get into a creative industry such as marketing? Where did that light really set a fire for you?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I was super interested in human behavior. I've always been someone pretty observant. I really like to see how people interact and all that. And honestly, I wasn't, the way how I see myself in the future was to being a therapist. Yeah. However, once that I moved out of Venezuela and I started working I started studying in the US, that wasn't a path that I really wanted to follow. It's so many years of study. It's expensive, all of that. So the way how I kind of was able to channel that, that need to learn about human behavior, responses, emotions, connections, and also going back to the Maslow hierarchy of needs and all that was marketing and advertising. I've always been someone who's huge fan of just audiovisual content, so that was just kind of the connector of how I was able to connect that background that I have in psychology and taking it to advertising and communication and marketing.
So starting off with understanding what are some of the desires of your customers and what motivates them essentially.
Yeah, because I think that when it comes to marketing and branding, at the end of the day, you're not necessarily interacting with a company. You're interacting with some sort of entity.
Yeah,
it needs to have its values. It needs to have a personality behind. It needs to have some drives. It needs to have a mission. It needs to, feel like a living creature whenever you come with a brand new strategy. So the way how people interacted with brands and companies to pretty much improve their current state of life, I think that it was something pretty interesting that always got me. It got me pretty engaged in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's a great place to start because I think branding and psychology, there's a huge relationship between, first understanding what is motivating your customer and from that point, building a brand around those pillars, so you're really actually reaching your customer where they're at, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's one of the parts where a lot of people miss out. I think that in the B2C environment, that's something that has been studied for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But when it comes to B2B specifically,
Yeah.
like people have this wrong idea that you need to be always super professional,
Yeah.
and you cannot be appealing to emotions because you're not selling to the end user and all of that. But at the end of the day, after working for 4 years with B2B brands rather, I have noticed that, at the end of the day, people who take decisions are humans. At the end of the day, it's people selling to people, people making relationships with people. You're making partnerships with people. So you gotta keep that emotional sense. You gotta stay human. You have to be able to understand how your company will make your customers' life better, and just exploit that in your communication and your strategy.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think especially with B2B, they're traditionally more corporate and a little bit safe in terms of their messaging. It's even more powerful for them to play into, like, act like you're a consumer brand. Like some of the best brands that are the most memorable play on human emotions and behaviors. So why do you have to have that corporate mask on as a B2B brand? You don't. You can rip the band-aid off, and that's how you're going to really stand out from your competitors, I think.
Yeah, because like number one, everyone is doing that corporate type of personality, so you're not going to stand out. Yeah. So if you break up that mold, yeah, exactly. Like if you're able to break that mold, you'll be able to have a better competitive advantage over your competition because you're going to have your own personality as a brand. But at the same time, like what I always like to remember my clients is that the decisions, like the decisions that oh my God, let me see, how can I reframe this in a way that it makes sense? So like at the end of the day, you're playing with people, futures, promotions, state of the company. If you make a bad decision, like on a B2B environment, it's not like, yeah, you're gonna have a little bit of credit card debt or anything. Like you can really impact a lot of people's lives. Yeah. So like building trust and partnerships in the B2B environment, it's so important. It's even more important. Exactly. Yeah. Like, and I really like, it's funny to see how many companies have not realized that. Yeah. And they just want to show themselves as this professional type of, mannequin that has no emotions. Yeah. Where I understand where it's coming from, because, if people is depending on you, you don't want to look silly. You don't want to look like someone who's not reliable. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I think that there is not a contradiction between being, fun, having your own personality, voice, and be a little bit edgy versus being a reliable partner for your clientele. Yeah. I think that you can do both, because at the end of the day, like that's how we are as human beings. Like you can be the most professional person around, but that doesn't mean that you don't have emotions or that you're not someone fun to be around with.
Yeah, be authentic. Like at the end of the day, that's how you connect with other people, and businesses are entities that have to connect with other people at the end of the day. And I think that's the whole thing that this kind of corporate kind of mindset has. It kind of disrupts the ability for you to connect, and it's a huge missed opportunity for you not to tell your story and be as authentic as possible, and be prepared to kind of break that mold and stand out.
Yeah. And I think that that's where a lot of like big companies are missing out, because if you think about it, like normally small businesses have that personality attached, because like it's a small people, and you could it's a small team. And one of the things it's funny, I don't know if you have seen, like if you heard this idea that dogs look alike at their owners, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that small companies,
yeah,
they're pretty much mimic their CEO. Like by talking to the CEO or the C-level team, you already can have an idea of what is the culture of the company.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that that's where a lot of big companies are missing out, since there are so many people involved. And now, you have an enterprise that have over 1,000 people. Yeah. You start being a little bit more like a structure type of business, and you're losing a little bit of the soul. So, in order to keep that personality and branding involved, you need to be able to translate that culture
Yeah.
from the C-level personnel to the entry-level salesperson who's
It reminds me of Amazon. Like Amazon is a huge corporate company, but Bezos, like his whole philosophy is like we want to act as if we're still a startup. Even if we're a huge brand with thousands of employees, we want to still be agile and sound and communicate and act fast like a startup.
Yeah. And I think that that's the key. Well, I mean, Amazon, I think they're doing fine.
I think they're doing all right.
They're doing okay. So, and I think that that's the key when it comes to the big companies. You can be able to have your system and your structure in place, but if you go to, let's say, Amazon headquarters and you ask the first employee that you find, hey, what is the mission of the company, and they're not able to respond to that, I think that that's a problem. Because even like being able to expand in your culture from everyone involved, I think that that's where that's what it will make you succeed as a brand.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that Amazon did a decent job on that, and that's why they're making the big bag.
Yeah. So Christian, I feel like there's a huge amount of misconceptions around branding, but first off, like what is branding? How do you define brand?
So branding, in a nutshell, is pretty much just the process to create an identity for your brand, period. Now, I think that probably for whoever's listening, a better approach would be tell you what is not branding.
Yeah.
So branding is not your logo, not your colors, it's not your visuals, textures, patterns. I think that those are elements that are used to show your branding, but that's not the core of your company. And that's why every time that I have a new rebranding project, I do a little bit of back engineer. So before even like talking about the visual elements that are more recognizable on branding, I just try to dig in on what is, like, how are you making your customer's life better through your product and service? Now, like, once that you have that foundation of it, and then, I think that, for instance, like Nike does a great job, say, hey, I just, want to make sure that all athletes are successful.
Yeah.
Like, and if you have a body, you're an athlete. So once that you have like that sort of
feeling, like it's not, like you said, a brand isn't just a collection of colors, fonts, and a logo. A brand is something bigger than itself. It's a feeling. Like when you think of Nike, you think exactly aspirational athletes achieving their goals.
Yeah, and like more than a feeling, I'll say that branding, it's a mission.
Yes.
You are, like, as a brand, you are coming to the market to solve an issue from your client. Now, the fun part is to understand, okay, so let's say that you are in the business of selling shoes. Okay, so how are you going to make your life, like your customer life better through your shoes? It's about being like showing like elegancy. It's about making comfortable. It's about durability. So, now that when you start talking to a client, you keep understanding what are the main sales propositions. So, what are the benefits of their brand. Now you're able to create, a 360 type of like a strategy that involves that messaging. But, being able to have the core identity and mission and vision, and okay, this is how we're going to impact your life. Now you can have everything that is visual, and then it's when the fun part comes up, like, hey, it's when we say, okay, so you want to be reliable. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and select a color palette that identifies your brand, but also give a sense of reliability. Now when it comes to the logo, okay, so you want to create the idea of moving forward. Okay, so let's see what little like Easter eggs can we put on the logo to give that idea of growing, movement, all of that. So I think that that's the key when it comes to branding. Don't be so focused on how you're gonna look like. Like, you need to have your values and your mission, and like like just your quest to put in a simple terms together, and then from that foundation you build the rest.
I think that's a very interesting, a huge misconception I think a lot of brands have, or companies that think, okay, we need to invest in brand, but then they just invest in a collection of colors and fonts and a look, instead of actually going deep on like what is our mission? What are we actually standing for? And it's like, you don't get on a plane without a direction and just, randomly go on your mission. So having that first direction point pinned, and then from there you can build your brand around it and justify your design choices. All of these things come after it.
Yeah, and I think that one a very important point as well is that branding needs to solve a business problem.
Yeah.
And I have that all the time. I have dealt with people who are really fun to work with,
Yeah.
but also have dealt with people who are on their 60s and 70s.
Okay.
That you need to break that stigma that
Yeah.
branding is a waste of money and time.
Yeah.
So the first approach that I take every time that I got a client on board is, hey, what are the pain points that your business have?
Yeah.
Where do you think that your sales team is struggling? Like, what is the comment from your clients? Like, what is the feedback that you're getting? And first of all, like, how do you want to be perceived on the market? You want to be perceived as someone fun? Do you want to be perceived as someone who can get the job done, who's always available? Okay, so now that you have those cues, is where you can start building that, and
Yeah.
I think that whenever you have a very serious conversation with your client, like, hey, this goes beyond just how your brand looks. Like, if you work with us and we put a strategy together, like, those business problems that are costing you money or could make you get more money will be solved, and that way we can make sure that we streamline all the communication.
Yeah. Branding is your reputation. It's how people are going to remember you.
Yeah, period. Yeah.
So going back to the value of branding and going back to the first base when you're thinking, how are we going to architect our story? Like, how important is storytelling within branding?
Well, I think that storytelling in branding, it's like, I would say that it's the foundation of it. And
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but whenever we're speaking about, what is the mission and what is the quest that you're getting into to solve your client's problem.
Yeah.
And the way how I normally put together a storytelling strategy for our clients is through the Storybrand framework.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with that. I think that we have spoke about this a few times. But
tell me though, what is the Storybrand framework, and how can you apply that model when you're thinking of brand storytelling and architecting your the message for your customer and how they're going to communicate their vision?
The Storybrand framework like didn't necessarily started as marketing or advertising like strategy. It was actually type of it came from the idea that all the best selling movies in Hollywood have the same sort of like storytelling structure.
Yeah, the hero's journey.
The hero's journey.
Yeah.
So, if you look at Star Wars, for instance, you have a hero,
he meets a guy,
who's Obi-Wan, has a
overcomes
problem,
obstacles.
Exactly.
And then, at the end, a conclusion occurs that makes him feel whole. That we're going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Exactly. So, I mean, you got it. So that's the same, like, so that's the same principle. So a story brand, like the way how you can apply that to branding and marketing is that, let's say that you're selling shoes, right?
Yeah.
So instead of making your communication about how great your shoes are or how good you are, you're going to sound like you're drinking your own Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
So what you should be doing instead is just first of all, understanding your target audience.
Yeah.
And I know that this might sound redundant, but you have no idea how many people really don't know who are they selling to.
I think that's a great point. I think a lot of people think we can just list off a load of features and not talk about problems. But essentially every story needs to solve a problem. And without understanding what your customers' pain points are, like, you don't have a brand story that actually people are going to buy into.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because I actually should have mentioned this at the beginning. So the main idea of the Storybrand framework is that unless that you give information to your clients that will help them survive in this crazy world, they will ignore you.
Yeah.
So how does survival looks like? It could be, well, literally, just surviving from the physical standpoint, but also it could be, how can I send my kids to college?
Yeah.
How can I lose weight? How can I get better habits? How can I get clothes that will give me status?
Yeah.
So based on that, the idea that we're consistently looking for drivers
Yeah.
to be, in a better place in our life, you
Yeah.
have to create like a strategy that will tell your client, hey, I'm the guy that will help you get there.
Yeah.
So I think that, having like making your client king all the time, it's how you're going to get it. So let's say I'm going to give you an example. So, you have, let's say that I have a podcast.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a
Yeah.
podcast, right?
Yeah.
So instead of saying, hey, I have a great podcast where I talk to great guests and da 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 da, what you should be doing instead is just coming with
You're solving a problem.
yeah, but
Yeah.
coming with a narrative saying something along the lines of, hey, has it happened to you that you really don't have time to read books, but you really want to get knowledge about
Yeah.
this specific topic?
Yeah.
You're already creating the idea. Yeah, actually, I
Yeah.
might have that need.
Yeah.
But the reason why you cannot read is because you're working all day.
Time.
You
Yeah.
have to talk, you have to take your kids to school.
Yeah.
Then you have to work out. So
Yeah.
either or you read or you go work out and then you get home.
Yeah.
But now you need to talk to your wife or you need
Yeah.
to, walk your dog or whatever.
Yeah.
So you already have this main character who's the
Yeah.
person who's cannot read.
Yeah.
Now they have a problem.
Yeah.
And guess who's coming?
You have to provide that solution.
You got Rory.
Yeah.
That he has a great podcast.
Exactly. I mean, that's the goal really with these episodes. Every episode has to be solving a problem. Like, look, Christian, you know a lot about branding, websites, and storytelling. You can bring all that knowledge and educate our guests, and by the time they finish watching this episode, they've, took all these lessons and takeaways that they can apply, that can, fulfill their needs essentially.
But how are they gonna fulfill that need, Rory? They need to. You need to call them to action.
Yes.
So what is the action? Subscribe to the podcast. There you go. So like it goes like that. Like that. Now that you have built that reputation as a guide.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Like branding, you gotta be a long-term strategy. So you create a reputation.
Yeah.
You're able to gain the trust of that client that you want to reach, and then you can call them to action directly or indirectly. So you can let them know, hey, if you want to learn more, you can subscribe, or you can buy this 10-step da 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 da.
Yeah.
And if you do it, you'll be
We're gonna
happy.
reward you.
Exactly.
And you're gonna feel whole.
Yeah. Or if you don't do it, no luck for you.
Exactly.
You're gonna stay dumb. But that's just the idea. Like just be able, like we are living our lives as the main character, and you cannot let your company be your main character.
Yeah.
You always need to make your customer be the hero of their own story.
Yeah.
And once that you got that right, and you understand that everyone is just trying to survive in this landscape, you're gonna be more successful. Connecting with your clients and selling your product. At the end of the day, we are like all business need to make money. And that's the main goal. Like, let's be straight up honest.
Yeah.
But unless that you are able to create a relationship with your customer in the same way how you would create a relationship with your friends, with your partner, with your coworkers, you're not going to succeed.
And I think it's interesting. I feel like brand has evolved over time. And what you see a lot of brands now is they don't want to be just seen as a company. They want to be seen as something bigger than a company. Like a community is something that is huge right now. Within recent trends, within branding, like there's a lot of brands that I follow that are huge on storytelling and branding and thinking like, how can we get our customers to buy in to our product, but not just the product, the lifestyle behind it as well. So I think of a lot of like, there's a brand called Represent, and it's a fashion brand essentially, but their whole principle is, we don't want to be seen as a fashion brand. We want to be seen as a lifestyle, and running is a huge, running high rocks, similar to Nike. It's being seen as more than just a pair of shoes. What are the behaviors that are guiding our audience, and how can we build a product that is going to fit into their everyday life and help them feel part of something bigger, essentially?
Yeah, well, I think that Lululemon is another great example of how a brand creates its whole identity through, lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, like how can I make someone to buy like $80 type of like jogger pants?
Yeah, exactly. When you think of it on rational terms, it's completely irrational. But as humans, we buy on emotion rather than logic.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not about the person I am; it's the person that I will be once I have those pants.
Exactly.
So like but what people needs to understand that is that like being able to sell those pants or like t-shirts or whatever or the yoga mats,
Yeah.
like you have to create that story before.
Yeah.
Because if you just go to the features of benefits of the clothing, like that's not going to be enough
Mm-mm.
to sell you like $100 t-shirt just to do
Yeah.
yoga. It's like how the person that I want to be, and also like being like this is super cheesy, but the aspirational part of it,
Yeah.
it's also massive.
Yeah.
You are another person when you put that Lululemon's
Yeah.
t-shirt, and I think that that's the interesting part. That's where branding plays a
Hmm.
key role in
Yeah.
your company.
We've talked a lot about the value of branding, but I want to talk a little bit about actual the process itself. So, what is your process when a new customer comes to you and say, "Look, Christian, we want to rethink about our branding." Like, how do you walk the client through that process?
First of all, it will be the research portion of it.
Hmm.
I would say that before taking any decision about marketing, like you need to get to know your clients. So, like you have a conversation. Here's where you act more as a therapist, as a
Yes.
consultant.
Yeah.
You sit down with them, like you do a full audit of what is the current state of their company,
Yeah.
where are they at, and most importantly, where do they want to be,
Yeah.
right? So once that you have that, you also run an analysis through data that is available.
Yeah.
Because one thing that you often see is that the problems that the client thinks that they have, it's not necessarily the actual problems that they're currently having on their company. So
Hmm.
you need to make sure that the current state of your client matches the data that is available to
Yeah.
see if there is any sort of discrepancy. And once that you go through that research stage, is where you start taking the key takeaways. So hey, this is where the company needs to go.
Yeah.
This is the strategy that we're gonna put together. And now that we build that foundation of hey, this is the message that your client needs. This is what your brand should be known for. Because I think that there is an important difference between what your brand can do
Yeah.
versus what do you want to be known for.
Interesting.
Yeah, because like let's say that you're doing cell phones, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone iPhone is doing cell phones, Android is doing cell phones. So
Yeah.
like you do that, but what do you want to be known for?
How are you differentiating yourself?
Well, I think that for instance, like a good example is Android and iPhone. Like the iPhone, it's more it normally reaches more artists,
Yeah.
hipsters, if you will, like just to say an example.
Don't get me started on Android.
Hey, well, man, I mean, well, none of them are paying, so both of them sucked. How about that? But Android's more, it normally targets more geek people, right?
Yeah.
So both of them do virtually the same thing.
Yeah.
But what do you want to be known for? So
Yeah.
I think that that's also like a huge part of the branding,
Yeah.
strategy. Now that once that you understand what your brands want to be known for is where you put the strategy behind.
Yeah.
You generate like the logo, based on with a story behind. Like one thing that I love when it comes to logo creation and also like brand elements is just do some little like Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much like hidden elements
Okay.
within a brand.
Yeah.
And also like appeal to the subconscious portion of it.
Yeah.
Like how these certain colors make you feel. What is the symbology of it? I'm someone that I personally like. I'm a nerd when it
Yeah.
comes to symbology, shapes, like and that portion of propaganda. I think that
Yeah.
this where it gets dark
Yeah.
because one of the things that I personally love too, like is history in general,
Mhm.
and like one of the things that like caught me about marketing is how you can use propaganda to literally shape people's minds, right?
Yeah.
Certain colors make you feel certain ways.
Yeah.
Like certain shapes give you like some specific feelings. So once that you understand what your brands want to go, you can start playing mind games with your client and start adding like those little Easter eggs to
Yeah.
be able to drag that vibe, that you want to create for your brand.
Who do you think of as a brand when you think of this term of Easter eggs and dropping hints within the icons and symbolism of your branding?
Well, I'll give you like just a few examples of that are easy to reference. For instance, FedEx. It
Yeah.
like a lot of people don't realize that whenever you see the white space, they have a little arrow that is moving towards the right. So I'm surprised of how many people haven't noticed that.
For so many years, I never noticed it until someone pointed it out to me. And as soon as you notice that, it's like, it's life changing.
Yeah,
Like, it's
like
like how once you like fill in the gap, it really helps you buy into the brand even more.
and you cannot unsee that.
You can't unsee it from that point.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Another example is well, I think that they changed their logo recently, but F1, like one of the old logos in the early 2000s was the F with the one on the right, and it has like the number one in the white space as well. So
Yeah.
those are examples as well. I think McDonald's is a huge one.
Yeah,
Red
of
and
course.
yellow makes you hungry. Da, 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 da. So I think that that's the interesting part. Like how you can really like control like the perception that people have for your brand just with elements like that. Pointy shapes are provide that sense of reliability. The green makes you be more welcoming. So it's used on hospitality, or of course
Yeah.
like green brands like Animal Planet, etc.
So, Christian, once you've worked out, okay, we know what our brand is now, but the next step for a lot of companies is figuring out how can we communicate our message through multiple touch points. And one of the most important touch points nowadays is your website, of course. And I feel like websites have evolved. We're no longer in the HTML area of just text and simple design. Like, design has taken like on a huge different mold now.
Sometimes too much.
Sometimes maybe it can be too much, but yeah, like what is your approach when it comes to websites, and what's your philosophy behind building a website in 2024?
So I think that website it's just a business channel. So
Yeah.
I don't think that is like a one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's always good to have your digital footprint, but some companies or some brands could take more advantage of their website versus others. But at the end of the day, I think that when it comes to website development, the first thing that you need to ask is, okay, what do I need this website to be for my company? Do I need it to be a selling tool?
Yeah.
Do I need it to be just an online catalog?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need it to be an e-commerce site where I can streamline my sales?
Yeah.
Do I just need it to be a place like in case that let's say that you're a comedian or you have a podcast, like I just need a place where I could have all my social media channels and I could sell tickets or something. So I think that that's the first thing that you need to ask. Like, what do I need a website for? How can I support my business through this website? Once that you have that figured out, you can create the user experience behind, and you're able to create the story that you want to tell. So you create a funnel based on that action that you need people to take on your website, or those actions, because it could be more than one. So if you need it to be let's say, I think Amazon is a great example, and then Amazon is not paying, so they suck too. so
this episode is not sponsored by Amazon.
Amazon cost that. we don't know. For what we know, we're not sure. So, but I think that's something that like they did pretty well was you can buy whatever with 3 clicks.
Yeah,
so they understand, hey, this website is just about selling products online. So that's the main thing that we need to make sure that people can get easily.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you have very, I'm just going to give you an example of a B2B company.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you have an energy company
that
has products that are super, high ticket.
Yeah.
You're not going to, like, you might not need a website that allows you to do an e-commerce of those products. Probably what you need to know is just show your client, like, what do you have available, and what are the main key value props of that product.
Yes.
And probably the website, what it does is it's just a tool for the selling team, so they can get leads through the website. That's perfectly valid too. Like, just enough information so the sales team can do their job. After that, I think that makes a lot of sense too. So it just depends on, like, I'm working currently with a manufacturing company. They literally said, hey man, like, people who are going to our website, they're just looking for basic information. Number one, they need to know what materials we handle. Number two, they need to know, like, how big can we make those materials, period.
Yeah.
That's it, and that's the only thing that you need to put on the website. Of course, you need to create an appealing user experience and interface.
Yeah.
But one thing that I always tell my team, hey, making this website look nice is the bare minimum. That's what you're expecting to do.
So really it's all about functionality and removing friction at every step of the customer journey when it comes to your website. And I think it comes back to, what we were talking about earlier. It all comes back to what problem does your website solve, and how can we tell that story and frame it in a way that is going to guide your customer on their journey.
Yeah, like if you think about it, there is so many already, like there is so many barriers already that your client needs to face in order to buy from you.
Yeah.
So you don't want to add that to the side.
Yeah.
So with that being said, it's just a matter of and I know that it's could sound repetitive, but I cannot hesitate enough how much you need to put yourself on your client's shoes.
Yes.
Like when it comes to the website, you just need to understand like one thing that I have noticed is that many clients want their website to do everything for them, and that could be that's 100% possible.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you have to have a strategy for, okay, let's say I have 4 different type of customers. Like for instance, and I think that I can give you an example of LinkedIn. I have people who are here just to be thought leaders.
Yeah.
So they're gonna use this as a professional social media
Yeah.
to create content. I have people who are just looking for jobs, and I have people who are looking to learn more skills through LinkedIn learning.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can have it all, but at the same time, you have to make sure that you need to set up your website in a way, or app in this case, in a way that they could, like, all these different like buyers
personas,
yeah, are able to to function seamlessly. Oh my god, they're able to work seamlessly. Oh my god, I want to change the word. Yeah, so that all these elements can come together and work fine without necessarily like colliding between each other. So I think that that's the main key.
As long as they're telling a story and solving a problem. I think a lot of people, when they approach their website, they think about, similar to the same mistakes people come when it comes to branding. They think too much of the visual side of things, and they completely ignore what the user experience is like. Having a video banner and all these different animations and parallax scrolling effects on the website, and the website takes like 10 years to load, and it doesn't properly translate on mobile, and you haven't really put the thought into like what is the actual end goal of the user, and what is the experience actually like for them on the website.
Man, well, it's funny that you mentioned mobile, because you have no idea how many companies have a beautiful website and desktop that the mobile responsiveness is shit.
Yes.
And that's a huge problem, because whenever you go to the analytics,
Yeah.
you see who's visiting the website, and like only 40% is looking at it on desktop.
Yeah.
So you're literally creating a beautiful site that it looks great on a computer, but whenever like people are going on their phone, you realize that it's just terrible.
And you think about the amount of time people spend on their phones these days. It's a huge amount of time, and
it's easy
majority,
access.
Yeah, the majority of people are gonna experience your website through mobile. So I think it's a huge missed opportunity to overlook, making your design responsive.
Yeah, like, and as you said, the end of the day, like, you're not gonna have your computer all the time. If you need to rapid fire something, or just be able to look at like a quick inquiry on your phone, you need to make sure that the funnel is as powerful, if not more, on the phone that is on desktop. And I want to come back to what we were talking about, like the designs and the trends and everything when it comes to a website design. I do have like mixed feelings when it comes to that, because I definitely encourage everyone who's working on web designs or just web projects to be aware of what are the trends that are happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that we need to look beyond that, because unless that you're a brand that has the capability to be updating their website big time in a in a monthly or quarterly base, I think that whenever you're building a design based on trends, you have to keep into consideration that those trends might be
The
cool
trends.
today,
Yeah.
but in 2 years, it's gonna look. First of all, it's gonna look overused because everyone is trying to use those trends,
Yeah.
and second one is gonna look antiquated. So that's a huge part, like, and it's fun how, like, when you're able to see like both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Like, I have friends that work on, for instance, software companies that, they're kind of like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And that's the client all the time, all year long.
Mhm.
And the UI designers are consistently looking for ways to make the same website look up to date at every single time. So
Yeah.
when you have that capability, not only from the design standpoint but also from development, like, I'll say, yeah, you can go crazy with the trends.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if that dies tomorrow, you'll be able to change it real quick. But if you're someone who's like, let's say you have a small business and you
Yeah.
really need your website to look decent for the next 3 to 5 years, like, you need to think ahead and be a little bit more, I don't want to use the word classy, but you
Yeah.
need to be a little bit more sober. You
Yeah.
need to be able to do a website that is going to age well.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well. It's funny. A lot of websites that are super fancy designs, but are missing on the functionality aspect of things. A lot of very old traditional websites. Yeah. We talked before about Craigslist. People know what the end goal is if you're going on a website like Craigslist, and people don't like to see too much change. So if you're updating your website just based off trends and completely ripping it apart, you're gonna alienate some people in the process.
No, for sure, man. I scroll through so many cool websites every day just for inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And I get very excited the first time. By the third time, I'm like, oh my God, how can I turn this off?
Yeah.
And that's something that you gotta keep in mind. You can have the best interface ever.
Yeah.
But you have to keep into consideration that you're gonna be having that interface every single day, and your clients are gonna have to deal with these complex transitions and animations. They're gonna get tired pretty quickly.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah, it's fun, and I think that I don't want to take away from the art of a great developer that's really like knocking it out of the park with an amazing interface.
Yeah.
I have great respect for that, but probably I'm a little bit more like have an engineer mindset in that sense of having like a function over form.
Function over form.
Yeah,
I like that. What's your thoughts on no code tools versus the traditional route of developing a website?
I mean, I don't think there is nothing wrong with it. At the end of the day, like, as I said, if your website has a pretty standard use, it doesn't make any sense to spend $30,000 with a custom code and like the data analysis of the background and all of that. Like, if you just need to show let's say, say you have a small business and you're just selling like car parts.
Yeah.
Just go to Shopify, do something that is literally functional for you, get your color palette, get your products, make sure that it looks, decent, and just pull the trigger, like buy a template, whatever, And honestly, like, I have, like, especially when it comes to e-commerce and things that require a lot of attention on the back end, and especially security, I would always recommend to go for a third party if you don't have the capacity in-house to do that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a software company, which like depends and relies on, having security data, like taking credit card information, stuff like that. You definitely need to have like a talented team behind, do custom coding for real.
Yeah.
But as I said, like, it's not a right or wrong answer. Like, it's a tool. If that's the tool that do well for your business, use it. If you don't want to invest a lot of resources on that, like, let's go for it. Like, we have, like, normally it's like, for instance, Squarespace or WordPress, or like those tools have a very open, like, customer service line that if something goes wrong, they're able to help you. So I mean, if that's what you need to do a website for, I would say go for it. But if you want to have like a legit website with a shit ton of functionalities that require security and like people who know their stuff, like, go with custom coding. And I'm not a developer, so like, you can believe me or not.
What do you think the future of websites are going to look like?
Ooh, that's interesting, man.
We're seeing a lot of websites become more like an experience, like experiential kind of website experiences. We're seeing a lot of new developments within, Web3, AI, for example. Like, where do you see these trends kind of shaping the future of websites from where we're at now?
Wow, that's a good question.
It's profound, right?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Need to like
I have
hit a joint on like the Joe Rogan
literally,
podcast.
dude. And that's I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, I haven't put so much thought about it because honestly, like I got to the website landscape kind of like by mistake.
Yeah.
I would say that definitely more in the strategic like branding start in the strategy and branding portion of marketing. But something like if I have to take a wild guess, I think that the function of a website is going to be changing over the years. Like normally
Yeah.
that's how people like back in the days, your website was how people interacted with your brand from the digital standpoint, and I think that's dying, and I think
Yeah.
that it's going to keep dying a little bit. Like I think that right now if you want to learn more about a brand, you'll probably go to their TikTok, their
Yeah.
Instagram, their social media,
Yeah.
and that's how you're going to keep your audience involved.
Yeah.
Like when you see like the bigger brands around, like if you go to their website, like it's normally pretty basic, like
Yeah.
and for many of those brands, their website is literally just like career type of
Portal. Yeah.
portal, so I think that it's hard to tell, definitely, with AI, if I have to take a wild guess, is that it's gonna make these sort of like templates and like kind of like
Yeah.
predefined type of website formats easier.
Is essentially democratizing the process of building a website.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
right now you have a lot of tools that will build you a wireframe in seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that definitely it's cool. It's especially if you're someone who's just getting into it. Same thing with ChatGPT. They could like write a whole article in like seconds. Cool, but I think that at the same time, it's gonna start making more value the human touch behind the design. I think that right now having a human interaction is gonna be a commodity.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could make a case that that's good or bad.
Yeah.
But I think that we as creative should take that as an opportunity to understand what is the value that we bring to the table, not only from the strategy standpoint, but also from the design.
I think it goes back to psychology, like the whole principle of cost signaling. Like for me, like for example, if I've seen a website or even like a piece of advertising written very obviously by AI, ChatGPT, like I don't see as much value in it. But when I know that hours of thought and effort have been put in by someone into this piece of art and design, I'm going to value it a lot more.
Yeah, and like you could tell that it has a soul. And I know this is gonna sound like cheesy, but like whenever you see a caption or article written by ChatGPT, it's the most generic thing possible. And like don't get me wrong, I use it all the time, for inspiration. But at the same time, you could tell when there is a human behind. You could have a sense of, that I mean I don't want to use the same word, but like it has a soul. It has a connection. It has something beyond the words that are written or the design.
I think essentially it's a tool for creatives to help become more creative. It speeds up the process. It gets it gets the ideas kind of flowing, and then you can use that as a springboard to create an even better product. But if you're over relying on AI to create the final product and you've not actually put any like blood, sweat, and tears into it, people aren't going to value it, and it's not going to have the same impact or emotional connection like we've gone back to and talked about.
And it's gonna be sloppy, man. I mean, I have seen like so many videos on Instagram or TikTok say, "This is how you create a company marketing campaign in 5 minutes."
Yeah,
like just go to ChatGPT, and you like literally when you look at that, like you understand how that is important to operate at scale.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I think that if you watch a video like that and that's the only takeaway that you have, like you don't. Yeah. You're not able to put, your effort, your creativity, your brain into that template that the AI is giving you.
Yeah.
You can do so much. You're gonna have a pretty set roof when it comes
Yeah.
to your growing.
I think when you're constantly looking for shortcuts and templates, you're eventually going to get left behind, because
100%.
it's kind of herd mentality. Everyone's, going to follow the trends and the templates, but then the people that are actually, following a more traditional process are probably going to be the ones that, are seen as the thought leaders in the space, and the people that actually have a unique perspective and story.
Yeah, and I think that even like prompt generation, it's a way of being creative as well.
Yeah.
Like I have seen many people using ChatGPT in a very basic way, and
Yeah.
like I'm not a ChatGPT expert by no means,
Yeah.
but I've been able to use it for enough time that even before asking it to generate anything from me,
Yeah.
I literally have conversations with the motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
the brand, this is what they do, they
Yeah.
value this, they don't value this is the tone of voice. These are a few examples of how be a
Yeah.
a caption or a website brief for them. What do you need from me in order to
Yes.
have a better understanding of this
Exactly.
brand? And then you keep giving data, and
Yeah.
then after 30 minutes talking to the robot,
Yeah.
they'll give you like content that is
The-
actually
Yeah. The
valuable.
end result is so much better, because, you actually, that's how AI works. It's machine learning. You need
Yeah.
to train and warm up the model for it to actually give you something that's not just pure waffle, like I like to say.
Literally, it's just like teaching a kid,
Exactly.
in many ways.
Exactly. Yeah, it has huge amount of potential, but I think a lot of people don't really understand how to exercise it properly.
I agree, 100%.
Awesome, man. So next segment, I have a little quick fire round. So I have 3 questions for you.
Okay, ready.
Number 1. Okay, ready for this?
I don't know, man.
Favorite Super Bowl ad?
Okay,
It can be from 2024 or zoom out all-time Super ads.
so from 2024, I really like what Kanye did, dude. I think that was pretty clever.
Hey y'all, this Yay, and this is my commercial. And since we spent all the money on the commercial spot, we actually didn't spend any money on the actual commercial. But the idea is I want you to go to Yeezy.com, YEEZY.com, and I'm gonna write it at the bottom of the screen. And I got some shoes, and that's it.
And
Yeah, it's genius.
I think that was amazing, and it's funny because I don't know if he probably did it on purpose,
Oh,
but
it
it's
was
so on
intentional.
character.
Yeah.
It's something that you'll look at it, and just like, yeah, that's something that definitely Kanye do. And at the end of the day, that's pretty much the only commercial that I really remember.
It's funny, right? Everyone has like put this huge budget and time into creating ads that probably all look the same.
Yeah.
And Kanye just comes on the screen and is like, look, we spent all the money on the ad. Go to Yeezy.com. We have clothes for $20. That's it.
We got the shoes and shit. Here's the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
Go for it if you want. If you're whatever.
On like a crappy iPhone, shaky's in the car. There's no lighting.
I thought that was actually pretty clever. Like another Super Bowl. Well, it wasn't necessarily an ad, but it's it was like an event that happened during the Super Bowl. I think it was like 20. Oh no, well, not 20 years, but like 15 years ago, something like that. The power went off in Super Bowl.
Uh-huh.
And Oreo tweeted this, this tweet saying, "Hey, lights off, no problem." And they put a picture like, "You don't need something along the lines of you can drink in the dark" or something like that.
Yeah.
And that tweet went super viral.
Yeah.
So I think that it was super clever about it was just be able to use timing in your favor. And when it comes to going viral, I think that that's key.
It's all about timing and being there. Your message, like, you have to be clever. You have to have a unique kind of take, but just kind of show up at the right times. And I think Ryanair is a great example of newsjacking and taking something that's a trending topic and like inserting themselves into that narrative.
Yeah, man, agree.
Yeah, it's a huge skill. I think a lot of people kind of brands overlook, like not taking advantage of opportunities. Like, for example, the solar eclipse. a couple of days ago. You know, that's a once in a century opportunity. You know, you're never going to have that opportunity to insert yourself into that narrative again. So yeah, it's a huge opportunity you need to take advantage of.
Yeah, and I think that one, like for instance, with example of Eclipse is that like you also need to challenge yourself to understand that you're going to be competing with everyone.
Yeah.
So if you really want to stand out in an event like this, you really need to be able to find a very creative angle
Yeah.
that will stand out. And
Yeah.
like many brands, for instance, wouldn't even post something on the day. They'll do it on the day before or after,
Yeah.
just to get that extra exposure. And
Yeah.
of course, you need to do a
Show
post
off.
or like
Yeah.
something that goes with that mistiming as well. So I think that, you know, it's just a matter of being clever in that sense, you know, and, you know, many brands get that really well. Many others not so much, but, you know, that's just the game.
All right, man. Question number 2. Who is your... I know you're a man who enjoys
Okay.
fighting.
Okay.
Who's your favorite? I know you're into UFC, but who's your favorite fighter or UFC fighter of all time?
Whew. Dude, I know that his career didn't end so gratefully, but I think that dude Anderson Silva on his peak
Yeah.
was a whole different monster, dude.
Yeah,
like you know, something that I like to, you know, consider when it comes to martial arts is that it's an art.
Yeah.
You know, like it's an expression, you know, that, you know, it's happening through fighting. And, you know, whenever you see like Anderson Silva fight on his prime, dude, it was that. Like you could tell someone like at the peak of his art form. And dude, it was just beautiful. And he could do everything. Like he could do grappling, he could do striking, you know, like he dominated the division for I think it was like 6 to 7 years. You know, no one could beat him, dude. And he'll make it look so easily. Like also like the way how he would like fight, dropping his hands, you know, just showing the chin, you know, like I think that it was like it was entertaining to watch, you know. It's like watching Messi play soccer.
Yeah,
you know?
it's an art.
It's an art.
Watching
period.
2 people beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people might argue with me for that, but I mean, I do think that there is definitely art involved in, you know, martial arts.
What I love about UFC is the fact that they just kind of created a whole category of, you know, a sport for themselves. You know, like they kind of just showed up out of nowhere, and they've over time through branding, they've developed into this huge kind of like movement and brand over time.
Dude, I mean, I don't know if this is gonna be an unpopular opinion, but I cannot think of a sport that has had so much evolution.
Yeah.
In so like in such a short period of time. Like let's say if you think about soccer,
Yeah.
you know, like soccer, like
hundreds of years.
Yeah, hundreds of years, and is, you know, overall the same structure. You know, like if you look at, let's say, game from 2000s,
yeah,
it's, you know, have 11 people, you know, have the same type of feel, you know, like the idea is the same. But if you look at the early ages of UFC, dude, that was literally cage fighting. That was not MMA. You know, it's literally people just beating the shit out of each other with no rules, nothing. Like they'll have like different outfits. You know, you see a guy with a kimono, another one with shoes. So like the way how the sport has evolved, it's massive. You know, the way how they have, like, they went from, you know, fighters to athletes.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty interesting too. And dude, the level right now, it's insane. Like you see 20-year-old guys who are total assassins, and, you know, they're coming guys. So I think that that's pretty exciting. You know, one thing that I love about UFC more than any other sports is that whatever can happen. Like you could have the toughest guy, like you can have the guy who's been champion for like 5 years, and in 1 second, you know,
he gets tapped out.
It's
just
done.
Out of nowhere. Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. And like I like from the branding and marketing standpoint, I also think that UFC is doing a great job, like marketing to Gen Z, marketing to the female audience. You know, I think that they're not taking themselves too seriously in that sense, and I think that that's key, because, you know, you're humanizing your brand. You know, people,
so
it's
important.
fun to see what's going on. You know, there is so much like I don't think that the right word is drama, but I think that there is so many characters involved that it's literally like watching a sitcom, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that that's where what UFC got right. You know, they understood that they are in the business of entertainment, and they do entertainment through sports.
It's so interesting how someone can just show up one day with an idea And over time, through like storytelling and branding, you can create, this whole movement out of nothing.
Man, I think that that's key, and like people who are involved in the UFC, like Dana White or whatever, like they're business people, so that like being able to have the vision to grow your business from nothing to what is at right now, I think that it's so that's pretty cool, man. Something that I feel that you could learn from it, and like it's like a case study in that sense.
Just never get stuck in a cage with Anderson Silva and you're...
Oh man, with no one, dude. I'll be fucking dude.
Or get stuck in a cage with Christian. We don't know what this man can do.
No, man, I'm not that good, I promise you.
All right, man. Last question I got for you. What's your most memorable brand tagline?
Dude, there are so many, but there is one that is stuck with me for a long time, which I thought was pretty clever. Do you know the app Hinge?
Hinge, yeah.
Yeah, like it's the competition from Tinder, right?
Yeah.
And I love the campaign that they did. The tagline was "the app meant to be deleted."
Mm-hmm.
Because unlike Tinder, for instance, it wasn't a hookup app.
Yeah.
It was, made to, like actually create romantic relationships out of the app, and like meet like people that you will want to spend time with.
Yeah.
And they created a campaign with that tagline. I thought that was brilliant. And I think that the messaging that it's sending is like you are the priority. You as a user,
And it kind of goes against what all the other companies in the space were doing.
Yeah.
Because, from a selfish point of view, as an app, you want users to stay on it for as long as possible. But then, like, you're kind of forgetting what the end goal of the app is to meet people who end up going to, have a long-term relationship.
Dude, and I think that was that was very clever. Even like the commercials that they have were they were so good. Like I remember I did kind of like a small campaign for Tinder like in college, like in a student competition, and we were in depth like learning about these dating apps. And Hinge have this ad where like they created this mascot, which was the Hinge logo, like this little like boxy flurry type of of an icon, whatever. And and it shows the full timeline of someone using Hinge, where they connected.
Yeah.
And like the little mascot was all healthy and happy or whatever. And as they go on dates over and over, you see how it looked like somebody was beating the shit out of the icon. And at the end of the commercial, like you see like both couples like deleting the app, and it'll just disappear.
Nice.
So I think that that's really cool. Like, how can you use your mascot as the anti-hero? As long as it's alive, it means that you're not like the app is not achieving its goal. Once that you success, even if it's at the expense of the death of the app, at least they're taking you where you want to be. So I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super interesting having the user's end goal in mind, and I think that takes us kind of full circle. We've talked a lot about what is the value of branding and why is it important for you as a brand to differentiate from the competition, and that doesn't just entail your logo and colors. There's so many different elements to brand that are kind of taken through the journey of storytelling, websites, your how you show up on social media. But just to end off, Christian, what is your kind of what are you excited for the future and your like journey within branding and marketing?
Man, I have an answer that might not be very popular, but honestly, like I have no idea what the future have for me in a exciting sense.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Like if you tell me 2 years ago that I was gonna start on the agency that I work with, and in 2 years I was gonna be a brand manager, I'll tell you, I think that's a long shot.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to push myself to live like in the moment. I think that whenever you are focused on what you're currently doing, you'll be able to see opportunities in a in a clever way, that if you're thinking on an end goal that according to you is what you need.
Yeah.
But I think that whenever you start like getting yourself involved on the path, you fall in love with the process. You just stay focused on what you're currently living. Like probably what you thought that you wanted, it's not it. And you'll just see different paths that will take you to opportunities that you thought that you'd never have.
Yeah. I think it's such a amazing industry, and there's so many opportunities to learn just on the day-to-day stuff. Like, we're very busy people that are working with a lot of projects at one time, but there's so many different learning opportunities to take from that, I think.
Dude, 100%. You know, like I cannot believe that I'm recording a podcast with you, dude. Like, you know, like honestly, thinking back like 10 years ago, you know, I was in Venezuela. You know, I never thought about going to the States and like Canada or anything. And you know, if you'd be telling me that I'll be sitting with you here having a conversation, I'd be like, oh, come on, man, get this shit, get the fuck out of here. So, you know, that's kind of like a philosophy that I have in life, you know, like whatever. I don't know what life had for me. You know, I just make sure that I keep showing up every day, that I try to get better every single day. And, you know, the path will be built itself.
Yeah. One step at a time. I like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the way to go, you know.
So where can people get in touch with Christian? Where can people find you?
Well, man, you can follow me on Instagram. I don't have like, it's more like a personal account, but it's Christian BWN. Yeah. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, Christian Bowen.
Yeah.
And well, I think that that's pretty much it. You know, I have a few personal projects that I would like to push next year.
Yeah.
But so you stay tuned for that. But for now, you know, I'm keeping it private a little bit. We'll see what life has for me.
All right, Christian. Well, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and thanks for tuning in, guys. See you in the next one.